The galaxy was old, filled with countless civilizations, but among them was one species that burned brighter than most: humans. They came from a blue and green world called Earth, a place of oceans, mountains, and endless skies. Humanity was young compared to the ancient races of the stars, yet they carried something rare, something dangerous. They had a spirit that refused to break, and a hunger to reach higher than anyone thought possible. At first, the galaxy ignored them. Humans were seen as small, fragile, and reckless dreamers who had only just stepped into space. But within a few short centuries, their colonies spread across the stars. Their fleets were not the strongest, but their courage and creativity made them difficult to defeat. Wherever they went, they built, explored, and thrived. Yet not all watched them with kindness. Among the old empires of the galaxy, fear began to grow. The Xylan, a cruel and ancient species, saw danger in the rise of humanity. The Xylan Empire ruled through terror and strength, believing no younger race had the right to climb so high. To them, humans were a spark that needed to be crushed before it became a fire. And so, the order was given. The Xylan would erase Earth, the home of humankind. They would cut out the heart so that the body would die. The attack came without warning. The skies of Earth filled with shadows as fleets of Xylan warships descended. Cities were torn apart by fire from the heavens. Oceans boiled as weapons of unimaginable power rained down. Billions of voices cried out, and billions fell silent in the same moment. The people of Earth fought with everything they had, but they were outmatched. The Xylan did not come for conquest. They came for annihilation. Children hid in the ruins of burning cities. Families tried to flee, but there was nowhere safe. The once bright jewel of the galaxy became a graveyard of smoke and ash. Even the forests burned, the rivers dried, and the skies turned black. Humanity's cradle, their first home, was destroyed before their eyes. But not all hope was lost. Among the chaos, a handful of ships escaped. They carried only fragments of humanity: scientists, soldiers, farmers, and children. They fled into the stars with nothing but pain in their hearts and fire in their souls. They left behind everything they had ever known, carrying with them only a promise whispered from one generation to the next: "We will not forget. We will return." The Xylan celebrated their victory. To them, humanity was finished, reduced to ashes and wandering survivors. They did not see the danger that still remained, for they did not understand what kind of species humanity truly was. Humans did not forget pain. They did not forget betrayal. They did not forget their home. And most of all, they did not forgive. In the centuries that followed, Earth became a legend, a story whispered in exile. Parents told their children of blue skies, golden sunlight, and oceans alive with waves. Children grew up never seeing the world their ancestors had lost, but they carried it in their hearts as if they had walked those shores themselves. And so, humanity endured. The survivors rebuilt in hidden corners of the galaxy. They grew strong, in silence, waiting and watching. The fire that the Xylan had tried to extinguish still burned brighter than ever, fueled by memory and grief. 3,000 years would pass before they returned. But even in that long silence, one truth echoed in every human heart: Earth was not forgotten. The day of vengeance would come. The survivors of Earth drifted through the darkness of space. Their ships were not built for war, but for escape. Inside those fragile hulls, thousands of souls clung to life. They carried only memories, scars, and the burden of survival. Every man, woman, and child knew that they were the last of their kind. The cradle of humanity was gone, but its children refused to surrender. In the beginning, life was unbearable. Resources were scarce. Many ships broke down or vanished into the void. Families starved. Disease spread. There were nights when entire colonies prayed only to see another sunrise. Yet, in the face of despair, something stronger than fear grew inside them. It was determination, the stubborn will to keep moving forward. Humanity would not die in silence. They searched the stars for places to call home. Some worlds rejected them, barren and cold. Others were too dangerous, with storms that shattered their machines. But a few planets offered safety. There humans planted seeds, built shelters, and raised their children. Slowly the ashes of tragedy gave birth to small sparks of hope. Generations passed. Humanity adapted. The children of exile grew strong in ways their ancestors had never imagined. They learned to live among strange stars and harsh worlds. They built ships tougher than before, engines faster than before, and weapons sharper than before. They had no empire, no great fleets at first, but they had purpose. Every invention, every discovery, every step forward carried one hidden goal: to prepare for the day of return. Yet even as they built new lives, Earth remained at the center of their souls. Elders told stories of the lost world, their voices trembling with memory. They spoke of blue oceans that stretched endlessly, of forests filled with life, of skies painted with golden sunsets. Children who had never seen Earth would close their eyes and imagine it, carrying the image like a sacred treasure. For them, Earth was not just a place, it was identity. No human child grew up without hearing the oath whispered across generations: "We are the children of Earth. We will endure. We will return." The Xylan, in their arrogance, believed humanity was broken forever. To them, 3,000 years was a gulf wide enough to erase a species. They did not understand the human heart. Time only sharpened the wound. The pain of loss became the fuel of survival. The rage of exile became the foundation of strength. In silence, humanity spread farther. Colonies grew into hidden strongholds. Fleets expanded in secret. Scientists unlocked new powers from the stars, crafting machines that rivaled the greatest empires. The scattered fragments of humanity became something new, harder, wiser, stronger. Still, they did not reveal themselves. To the galaxy, humans were little more than a myth, whispers in the dark, survivors who had vanished long ago. But in the quiet corners of space, humans trained. They prepared. Every soldier knew the story of Earth's fall. Every pilot carried the names of ancestors who had perished in fire. There was no rush. Humanity had learned patience. They understood that vengeance would not come in 1 year or 1 lifetime. It would come when the time was right, when the blade was sharp enough to cut through the chains of history. And so the years became centuries. The centuries became millennia. Humanity changed, but they never forgot who they were. They were wanderers, builders, survivors. But above all, they were the children of a world stolen from them. And when the day came, when the fleets that had grown in the shadows finally stirred, they would rise not as victims but as a storm. The galaxy had forgotten them. The Xylan had dismissed them. But the children of Earth had been waiting. 3,000 years of silence was not weakness. It was the deep breath before the fire. The galaxy had almost forgotten humanity. To most races, the destruction of Earth was an old story, a tragedy spoken of only in passing. 3,000 years was enough for empires to rise and fall, for stars to be born and die. The memory of the humans had faded into legend, like smoke drifting into the night. But legends have a way of returning. In the silent corners of space, humanity had prepared. Their colonies were hidden behind nebula clouds, deep in uncharted systems, or buried beneath the surface of distant worlds. While the galaxy traded, fought, and schemed, the children of Earth sharpened their claws. They forged fleets of ships larger and stronger than anything they once dreamed of. They crafted weapons that could cut through the armor of the proudest empires. And they trained their people with a purpose no other race could match. For humanity, war was not just survival. It was justice waiting to be unleashed. The first signs of their return were small. Xylan outposts along the edge of their empire began to fall silent. Patrol fleets vanished without a trace. At first, the Xylan believed it was the work of pirates, or rival species. They laughed at the thought that humans could be responsible. How could ghosts strike so hard? How could a race they had crushed so long ago rise again? But the attacks grew. One outpost, then 10. One patrol, then entire fleets. Each time only wreckage remained, drifting in the cold silence of space. No survivors, no warning. Only whispers carried by frightened traders, whispers of ships bearing a strange symbol, a star crossed with blue and white, glowing proudly against the darkness. The Council of Races gathered in panic. Old rivals set aside their quarrels, trying to understand the storm rising in the shadows. Who dares to challenge the Xylan, they asked. What power grows strong enough to tear at their borders? No one could answer. The galaxy had no name for the enemy, only fear. Then one day the truth was revealed. A captured Xylan transmission spread across the stars. A fleet had been destroyed, and before their signal was cut, a single message echoed across every channel. We are the children of Earth. You destroyed our home. You hunted our people. But we endured. We never forgot. And now, we have returned. The words were simple, but they struck the galaxy like thunder. For the first time in 3,000 years, humanity had spoken, and their voice carried not weakness, but fury. The Xylan laughed at first. They mocked the idea that humans could stand against them. They had erased Earth once. They could do it again. But beneath their arrogance was a growing unease. Reports continued to flood in. Worlds lost, fleets destroyed, colonies burned to ash by human firepower. The galaxy trembled as the truth became clear. Humanity was no longer the fragile race they once were. They had been tempered by exile, strengthened by suffering, and united by vengeance. They were not many compared to the great empires, but they fought with a fire that no one could match. On distant worlds, oppressed species watched with hope. They saw the humans not only as warriors but as a force of justice. For if the humans could rise from the ashes of destruction, perhaps others too could resist the chains of tyranny. The storm was rising, and at its heart was a vow carried across millennia, whispered by every human soldier before battle, carved into the steel of their warships. For Earth, for the fallen, for justice. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, but humanity had never forgotten the galaxy, and soon all would remember their name. When humanity revealed itself fully, it was not with whispers or hidden strikes. It was with thunder. The fleets that emerged from the dark were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were not the fragile ships of a young race anymore. These were titans of war, vessels forged in exile, hardened by centuries of silence, and perfected by the pain of memory. Their hulls were black like the void, edged with blue light that carried the symbol of Earth's lost star. Every ship was a monument, every cannon a voice of vengeance. The Xylan watched in disbelief. The last time they had seen humans, they were desperate refugees running for their lives. Now they were conquerors returning with power that shook the heavens. What was once prey had become the predator. On every channel, across every star, the humans spoke with one message, clear and burning. We are the children of Earth. You burned our home. You slaughtered our families, but we survived. And now we have come for justice. That message spread faster than light. Across the galaxy it echoed into the ears of every race, every empire, every council. The words carried no negotiation, no compromise. They carried only truth and fire. Humanity had returned. The first great strike was swift. A massive Xylan stronghold, considered invincible for thousands of years, fell in less than a day. Human warships moved with frightening precision, their weapons tearing through defenses as if they were paper. Xylan soldiers, proud and merciless, found themselves powerless before the fury of humans who fought as if every battle was personal. And to them, it was. The galaxy held its breath. If the Xylan, feared for millennia, could be broken, then what could stop the children of Earth? But humanity was not reckless. They did not strike blindly. Every target was chosen carefully. Worlds where the Xylan had committed the worst atrocities, stations where they had enslaved the weak, fortresses built with the bones of conquered species. Humanity did not fight only for themselves. They fought for all who had suffered under the shadow of the Xylan Empire, and so the oppressed began to rise. Alien races who had once bowed their heads in fear now lifted their eyes with hope. They saw human fleets cutting through the empire that had ruled them for so long, and their hearts stirred with courage. Some even joined the humans, offering ships, soldiers, or information. Humanity's war became more than vengeance. It became a spark of freedom. The Xylan, blinded by pride, called humans arrogant. They believed no exile could stand against the might of an empire that had ruled for thousands of years. Yet battle after battle proved them wrong. Humanity was not just an army, they were a storm. And storms could not be stopped. Every human soldier carried a story. Every pilot whispered the names of ancestors lost in the fire of Earth. Every general remembered the screams of their people, passed down through generations. That memory gave them strength no empire could understand. They did not fight for power. They fought for justice, for memory, for a promise made in the ashes of their homeworld. Soon the humans stood at the very borders of the Xylan home systems. Their fleets darkened the skies. Their banners flew across conquered stars. And still, they did not stop. For them, there could be no peace until the soil of Earth was beneath their feet once more. The galaxy trembled as the storm moved forward. Old empires watched in silence, fearing they might be next. The Council of Races whispered behind closed doors, realizing the truth too late. Humanity was no longer the forgotten exiles of legend. They had returned, and they would not leave until their vengeance was complete. The long road of vengeance led humanity back to the place where everything began, Earth, or rather, what was left of it. The homeworld was still scarred, its surface blackened and lifeless from the fire that had consumed it thousands of years ago. The oceans were gone, the skies broken, the forests only ashes buried beneath dust. But to humans it was still sacred. The Xylan knew this was the final stand. If they could hold Earth, they could crush humanity's spirit once again. And so they gathered their greatest armada. Millions of warships filled the void above the ruined planet, a wall of steel and fire stretching as far as the eye could see. This was their empire's pride, the proof of their power. But humanity came prepared. From the shadows of space, their fleets emerged. Thousands upon thousands of warships advanced in formation, engines burning blue, weapons armed with the fury of 3,000 years. They were outnumbered many times over, but they carried something the Xylan could never match: the fire of memory, the will to endure, and the hunger for justice. When the two fleets met, the galaxy shook. Beams of energy cut through the dark, tearing ships apart in flashes of light. Missiles streaked across space, carving fire into the void. The first hours were chaos. Explosions, screams, ships breaking apart under the weight of the battle. But humanity did not falter. Every captain knew the importance of this fight. Every soldier understood that the ghosts of Earth were watching. The Xylan fought with arrogance, believing their numbers would guarantee victory. They laughed when human ships broke under their fire, but their laughter soon turned to fear. For every human ship that fell, two more pressed forward. For every squadron destroyed, another one struck with greater fury. Humanity moved with discipline, as if each fleet was a single living being, striking where it mattered most. The battle raged for days. Neither side gave an inch. The void became a graveyard of shattered ships, their wreckage drifting silently while new waves clashed again and again. On the third day, the tide began to turn. Human warships pushed deep into the Xylan lines, their heavy cannons breaking apart the enemy's largest vessels. Fighters swarmed like angry hornets, striking at weak points, disabling weapons, and boarding enemy ships. Human soldiers fought, with unmatched determination, whispering the names of their ancestors as they cut down their foes. For the humans, this was not just a battle of fleets. It was a battle for history. It was the chance to erase 3,000 years of pain. At the Center of the Xylan Armada stood their flagship, a monstrous vessel larger than a city, bristling with weapons. It was a symbol of their empire's pride, the very ship that commanded the destruction of Earth long ago. Humanity knew it had to fall. Admiral Kalen, leading the human armada, gave the order. All ships, focus fire. For Earth, the humans surged forward. Wave after wave struck the flagship, tearing through its shields, breaking its armor, ripping away its pride. The Xylan fought desperately, unleashing weapons of unimaginable power, but the humans refused to break. Even as their ships burned, they pressed on, closer and closer until the flagship's core was exposed. And then, with one final strike, it exploded. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, lighting the void with fire. The proud heart of the Xylan Empire was gone. Silence followed. For the first time in millennia, the Xylan were broken. The humans had done what no other race dared to dream of. They had defeated the empire that destroyed their homeworld. Above the ruined Earth, surrounded by wreckage and fire, the humans stood victorious. The great battle was over, but their journey was not finished. The soil of Earth still waited for their footsteps. The battlefield above Earth had grown silent. The fire of the great battle still burned in drifting wreckage, broken ships, and the lifeless bodies of warriors who would never return. The humans had won, but their victory was not without a heavy price. Countless human ships were gone, reduced to twisted metal floating in the void. Entire squadrons had been erased in the fight to break the Xylan line. Families would wait for loved ones who would never come home. Admirals, soldiers, and children had all given their lives to see this day. Humanity had returned, but they had paid in blood. Yet even through the grief, there was pride. Those who had fallen were not forgotten. Their names would be remembered, carved into monuments, whispered in prayers, and carried into the future. They had given their lives for something greater, for justice, for memory, for the dream of Earth. Now the fleets turned their gaze to the planet below. Earth, their cradle, their beginning, their heart. For 3,000 years they had dreamed of returning. And now, at last, the moment had come. The landing was not a triumph. It was quiet, almost sacred. Ships descended through the dead skies, settling onto soil that had not felt human footsteps for millennia. Soldiers stepped out first, their boots sinking into the dust of their ancestors. Some stow, awed in silence. Others fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces. The land was broken. The once blue oceans were dry basins of cracked stone. Forests were only lifeless husks. The air was heavy, poisoned by scars that had never healed. Yet to humanity, it was still home. Every ruined mountain, every silent plain, every shattered city spoke to them like a voice from the past. Generals and leaders walked among the ruins, touching the soil with trembling hands. They carried no weapons now. They did not come as conquerors, they came as children returning to a mother long lost. The silence was filled with emotion too deep for words. In the ruins of an ancient city, a soldier found a piece of stone carved, long ago, still bearing the faint marks of human hands. She lifted it gently, her tears falling on its surface. "We are home," she whispered. Others joined her, kneeling in the dust. Voices rose, not in anger, but in sorrow and reverence. Some wept openly. Some closed their eyes and prayed. Some whispered the names of the fallen. For in that moment, humanity was not an army. They were sons and daughters returning to their birthplace. But even as the grief flowed, there was also hope. Humanity had survived what no other race could endure. They had carried the memory of Earth across 3,000 years, and now they stood upon it once more. The world was wounded, but it was not dead. Life could return. Seeds could be planted. Oceans could be reborn. The leaders made a vow that day. Earth would rise again. It would not remain a graveyard. Humanity would heal it as it had healed itself. They would bring back the green forests, the blue oceans, the golden skies. Generations would walk again on living soil, children would laugh under the sun, and Earth would no longer be a memory. It would be alive. The Xylan were broken, their empire shattered, their arrogance burned away. But victory was not just the destruction of an enemy. It was the rebirth of a people. Humanity had not fought only for vengeance. They had fought for this moment, for the chance to touch their home again and to promise it a future. As the sun set behind the ruined horizon, casting light over the dust, a single thought echoed in every human heart. The price was heavy. Because wounds are deep, but we are home, and we will rebuild. The ruins of Earth lay quiet beneath the stars, but above that silence, a new voice was rising. Humanity, once thought broken, once thought lost, now stood stronger than ever. The war had been long, the cost heavy, but their spirit had endured. And now, they were home. The galaxy watched in awe. News of the Xylan's fall spread across every star system, carried by frightened merchants, desperate survivors, and stunned diplomats. The impossible had happened. The Xylan Empire, feared for thousands of years, had been shattered, and the ones who had brought it down were not an ancient empire or a mighty alliance. It was the humans, the exiles, the forgotten, the ghosts of a burned world. Other races could not understand it. How could a people wait 3,000 years carrying pain through countless generations and still rise with such strength? But humanity did not need them to understand. The only ones they had needed to prove themselves to were their ancestors, the billions who had perished when Earth was destroyed. On the ruined surface, humans worked tirelessly. Engineers began studying the soil and sky, searching for ways to heal it. Scientists released seeds, testing which plants could take root again. Soldiers laid down their weapons and began to build shelters. Children ran across cracked stone, their laughter echoing in a world that had not heard joy for thousands of years. Everywhere, monuments were raised, not to victory, not to conquest, but to memory. Towers of steel and stone bore the names of the fallen, stretching high into the poisoned skies. Eternal flames burned in the ruins of cities, reminders that even in darkness, humanity's fire had never died. The Council of Races, once distant and silent, now sent envoys to speak with the humans. Some came out of fear, others out of respect, and a few even out of hope. They asked what humanity intended. Would they claim vengeance on the entire galaxy? Would they rise as conquerors now that the Xylan were gone? Human leaders answered with a single voice. We did not return to enslave. We did not return to destroy. We returned to rebuild, to honor the fallen, and to claim our place among the stars. Let the galaxy remember, never again will humanity be silent. Never again will we allow our home to be taken. The words echoed across the stars, more powerful than any weapon. For the galaxy understood now that humanity could not be erased. They were a people of memory, of endurance, of fire that no storm could put out. Among themselves, humans spoke of the future. Earth would be healed, no matter how long it took. Cities would rise again. Oceans would return. Forests would grow. The cradle of humankind would live once more, not as a ruin, but as the heart of a new age. But they also knew their destiny was larger than one world. Humanity had walked through exile and fire, and they would never be chained again. They would explore the stars not as victims but as equals, builders and protectors. Their fleets born from vengeance would now stand as shields for the free. Their name, once whispered in sorrow, would now be spoken with respect. On the first sunrise after the great battle, as light broke over the shattered horizon, humanity gathered. Soldiers, workers, children, and elders all stood together, watching the sun rise over their lost home. For a moment no one spoke. They only felt the warmth of light on their skin, something their ancestors had longed to feel again. Then, as the golden rays spread across the land, a single voice rose. For Earth, for the fallen, For the future, others repeated it. Then hundreds, then thousands, until the entire world seemed to echo with those words. It was not just a cry of victory, it was a promise. Humanity had returned, humanity had avenged, and now humanity would rise. The dawn of Earth's children had come, and the galaxy would never be the same again.